Hey everybody, Who's Your Jedi here with a few thoughts on The Last Jedi for you. All in all, I did like this movie. I thought it was quite an improvement over the last episode in the series. It really feels like they listened to what the fans had to say and made some really good adjustments to address some criticisms people had of the last movie. That said, there are still some pretty serious criticisms you can level at this film, but it is a significant improvement. Uh, so, generally speaking, I think Kylo Ren was the biggest improvement. I ended up liking, I was not much of a fan of the character from the last movie, but by the end of this one, I was like, wow, Kylo Ren is actually a much more interesting and much more well-developed character. I kind of get a little bit more about where he's coming from. I mean, he's still a bad guy, but he's a much more humanized and interesting character. Mark Hamill's performance was really, really great. Carrie Fisher was really, really great. There was some absolutely spectacular action. There were certainly some interesting moments. But there are also a lot of things in the story that don't make any sense, don't really seem to serve a huge purpose, and just don't always really work very well. So let's kind of get right into things. And from this point on, I'm going to talk spoilers. Actually, before I do that, since I live here in Japan, what they do at the movie theaters is they often have little areas where you can pick up some merchandise, some goodies. So when I went to see this on Sunday, I picked up a few things. This is a free little magazine they gave me, and it's not all about Star Wars. I mean, on the back of it's like the new Paddington movie. I saw this and I thought it was really cute, a little Rey toy. This was like $10. And normally I don't really go for stuff like this. But by the time I finished with the movie, like Rey as a character had really gone up several marks in my book, so I was willing to pick up something. And then the really cool thing that I got was this thing here. This is what in Japanese is called a tenugui, and it literally translates as hand towel. But it's really more used as a wall hanging. It's a decoration, and this was only like $5 or $6. I actually have two of these, not that particular one, but tenuguis for other things that I have. You can't see them, but they're here decorating my apartment. In fact, there's one for Neon Genesis Evangelion hanging directly over the computer I'm using to record this. And then another one is a Spider-Man one that I picked up at the Marvel World of Heroes exhibit when it came to visit Japan, and it's really cool. It's got like Spider-Man on a Japanese roof looking at some cherry blossoms falling off the tree. I mean, it's something you can only get here in Japan. It's super awesome. You can check my previous videos if you want to see that, and it's also, I believe, on my Twitter. Anyway. I've actually just been watching the Red Letter Media review of this one. The guys at Half of the Bag have been going over the movie, and they have some really nice comments. And honestly, I didn't want to mention that because it was like the Mr. Plinkett reviews of the prequels that really kind of spurred me to start this channel and doing reviews and just that. And now here, somewhere in the neighborhood of like 700 videos later. Anyway, hold on a second. Oh, jeez. Oh, man. Sorry about that. Oh, I'm going to have to wash my hands after this video. Okay. So, there were, as I said, several things in this movie that just really didn't make sense and didn't really seem to serve much of a purpose. As has been pointed out by quite a few people, that basically all the heroes in this movie do is fail. Poe Dameron doesn't really succeed at all that much. Finn and Rose don't really accomplish anything. I mean, that's kind of the worst offenders there. Is they go to the casino planet, they can't find the guy they're supposed to, the hacker they're supposed to find. They do run into Benicio del Toro, and his character doesn't even get a proper name. And then he betrays them, and we don't care because we have no reason to care about this character. Um, I mean, he just kind of had one moment where he was a little bit nice to Rose, and otherwise it's just sort of like good, evil, a lot rebels, empire, it's all the same. Which I suppose you could see as sort of echoing some of the theme of this movie that, you know, like just tear it all down, throw out all the old ideas, and just forget about it. Which, okay, I guess is something, but still. At the end of the day, all Rose and Finn managed to really accomplish is turning some animals loose in a casino. One casino. I mean, it's a good-sized town. I wouldn't be surprised if there's more. So basically, a casino is going to be messed up for a couple of days, maybe a week, and then it's going to be back to business as usual. I mean, granted, they freed some animals, but if the casino people care that much, they'll probably just go out there and recapture them, or like, oh, well, we lost some animals. Let's go out there and capture some new ones. So, again, they accomplish nothing. I mean, seriously, like the only person who accomplishes even less in this movie, I think, than Finn and Rose is Captain Phasma, who once again does basically nothing and then defeats a janitor in a fight and is then just a few minutes later killed by said janitor after he bushwhacks her. Again, Gwendolyn Christie, you really hype up this character, and then the highlight of her character over the course of 2 movies is beating up a stormtrooper janitor. I mean, that's it. She won a fight against a janitor. I mean, it's just like, what in the hell? Why is this character even in this movie if that's all you're going to do with it? You could have just made it like some generic stormtrooper. Yeah, I am just utterly done with that nonsense. Now, Poe Dameron kind of has a little bit more interesting stuff going on with Leia trying to sort of mold him into a political leader that the rebellion could use. And that does kind of have a little bit more juice to it. But again, this basically consists almost entirely of Poe Dameron messing up and no real substance coming from it. I mean, okay, you managed to take out that one ship at the beginning of the movie, but look at how many Alliance people you got killed. And as been pointed out, like, how in the world do these bombers work? I mean, there's no gravity in space. Why are they falling directly down? Yeah. I mean, I did like that they sort of like, oh yeah, Leia's last action before she kind of got messed up was to demote you. So, I mean, that was cool. And it was definitely cool to get to see Leia out, like, in space and using the Force. I mean, apparently Luke did take the time to teach her some stuff. But just like in the old EU, they probably realized that Leia was much more useful as a political leader than as just, you know, somebody else who's good at swinging around a lightsaber. I was not expecting... honestly, I was expecting her character to die in this movie, just given the situation with Carrie Fisher passing away. But I kind of what I thought they were going to do is like each film you say goodbye to one of the iconic characters. That's not how it panned out, but they basically, from what I understand, had already finished filming Carrie Fisher's stuff by the time she died. So I'm sure there will probably be some way they'll manage it in the 3rd movie, but I have a feeling it's going to be just sort of a very quick little thing. I mean, heck, for all we know, they might just say like, oh yeah, Princess Leia passed away in her sleep last night. Let's all have a moment of silence and then kind of go on with fighting the bad guys. I mean, I don't think they'll do that, but something. They'll do something. So, let's see. What else do we have to talk about here? Oh, since I was talking about Kylo, Captain Phasma, and characters who are kind of pointless, let's talk about Supreme Leader Snoke. I mean, we get this guy, and it's basically like some old guy with a messed up face hanging around in a gold bathrobe that makes him seem like Hugh Hefner. And yeah, okay, he's pretty good at using the Force, but I mean, Rey's like the most rookie Jedi ever, so he beats her up. Well, yeah, big surprise there. I mean, in all fairness, we never really knew that much about the Emperor from the original movies, but the prequels did take the time to fill in backstory about him so that we kind of had understood him better. Like, we still know nothing. Like, who is this Snoke guy? Where did he come from? Why is he this powerful? How did he learn to be so powerful? What is his ultimate goal? I mean, I guess it's galactic domination, but still, like, we know nothing about this guy, where he came from, or anything. How he was able to become the supreme leader. I mean, we have no information about this guy. So again, how am I supposed to care in the slightest about him? I mean, and then there's the big question of like, okay, if this guy's such a badass, how come he doesn't sense what Kylo Ren is about to do? Now, okay, fine. Killing off what seemed to be like the bad guy significantly before the end of the movie, that was an unexpected move, but that doesn't mean that it was a good move. Killing off the bad guy at the end is kind of a tradition because that's what's called a climax. And then there was the bit at the end where Kylo is like, hey, Rey, why don't you join me? And we'll just, screw the Jedi, screw all of this other stuff. Let's build something new. And I was so hoping it's like, dude, is she going to go for this? Because if she does, this is going to be awesome. Because that would be really interesting, They're people who both kind of have these two pretty extreme viewpoints, the light side and the dark side. And, what happens if they do decide, like, okay, let's cooperate. Let's try and build something together. Let's take the First Order and try and build them into something new that's maybe a little bit less all about, oppression and genocide and all this other stuff. It could have been potentially in the next movie a very interesting story about, like, can you take something like the First Order and turn it into something positive? Can you sort of meld that and what's little sorry, I heard something weird of the rebellion and turn it into something positive. I mean, again, it's something that's potentially really intriguing. And then it's sort of like, oh, no, I'm not going to work with you. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. Star Wars has always been very black and white and very simple in its morality. So, okay, fine. I'm like, oh, man, I knew you guys didn't have the guts to try something that crazy. But again, crazy, but potentially extremely interesting. And let's see. The bit with Yoda showing up, that was unexpected. I mean, I don't have a problem with him like being able to use the Force to sort of zap the tree. I mean, he's Yoda. He can do all kinds of crazy stuff if he really wants to. But seeing him, interacting with Luke again, and him just sort of immediately falling back into screwing with Luke as a way to kind of teach him a lesson. Now, some people pointed out that, yeah, the whole screwing with Luke thing was kind of an act, and then as soon as Luke figures out that Yoda really is the Jedi Master, Yoda shifts and becomes a much more serious person. Well, if you kind of go back and look at the older interpretations of Yoda, especially on stuff like Clone Wars, you'll see that Yoda always did have that somewhat mischievous side to him. He just sometimes, like when he was deciding to mess with Luke, really let it run wild. And you get the exact same thing with Luke when he's starting to train Rey. I mean, he does that thing with the plants, like, yeah, can you feel the Force? Which, again, him totally taking a page out of Yoda's book. And I know some people really didn't like that, but I thought it was hilarious. I even liked how Mark Hamill kind of even had those moments where he just managed to perfectly channel Luke from back when he was like 19 years old. Like when Yoda blows up the tree and asks Luke, like, "Hey, did you ever actually read those books?" And Luke is like, "Oh, well, not really." And the best part was like where Luke meets R2D2, and he's like R2D2 is like beep 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 beep, and Luke just is like, "Hey, secret planet, watch your language." I was like, "Oh my god, that's perfect." I mean, he still has that sort of little bit of like the goofy farm kid from Tatooine in there, and it's just like, oh, that's great. Just being able to have that moment, that was nice. And I also did like that the whole situation with Kylo Ren really was balanced on this like one moment where just for a second Luke was seriously tempted by the dark side. And we've seen this before. We've seen Luke be seriously tempted by the dark side before. We saw that in Return of the Jedi, where it really did look like for a second he was going to kill Darth Vader. But then he turned around and was like, "No, I'm not going to kill my father." And even Palpatine acknowledges, like, "Okay, man, you're a legit Jedi. I'll give you that. Now I'm going to kill you, but you've earned the right to be called a Jedi." So this really does drive home like why Luke did, basically ran off to this, godforsaken planet that was the home of the original Jedi, amazingly enough, to basically die, as he even says. Um, it's Luke sees this situation as being his fault, and here you get a little bit more of a clear picture as to why Luke believes it's his fault. Let's see, what else? I did like how they did really just sort of shoot the idea down that Rey had any sort of special parentage. Again, kind of a flip of Luke there. Like, yeah, her parents were nobodies. In a way, it's also kind of parallels Anakin. I mean, his mother was a slave. His father basically didn't exist for complex reasons that are still not quite fully explained, but Darth Plagueis messing around with stuff being the most popular theory. And I definitely like that bit at the end where, Luke shows up, they try and blow him up, and then it doesn't work. He just steps out of there and just like. And if people have pointed out, you can't see Luke making any footprints. He's got like the blue lightsaber that was destroyed, so there are definitely these hints that this is not really Luke. And they were smart enough to put that shot of the underwater X-wing in there to make you think like, oh, well, okay, that's how he got to Crate. Now, some people are a little weird on the whole, like, oh, Luke just fades away into the Force. Well, okay, well, remember what happened to Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? At the getting slashed with a lightsaber, and he just body just okay. So I think it was just Luke just poured too much of his life force into what he was trying to do, and ultimately he just vanished into the Force. I don't honestly have a problem with this. I actually thought it was quite an apt way for Luke to end his character's arc. I mean, come on, somebody beats Luke Skywalker in a fight? Nah, man, that's not how you want to do this. I mean, at least Obi-Wan Kenobi got to sacrifice himself for somebody. And I guess Luke doing the same would have been cool, but who are they going to put him up against that makes it seem like that? Kylo Ren? Well, I mean, there's a reason why people have spent years calling this character emo Darth Vader. So, no. Snoke? Well, again, we don't give a rat's ass about Snoke, so that's going to seem dumb. So doing it this way made sense. And I like how they did sort of that thing with the sunset, kind of letting him have that moment, harkening back to that iconic shot from the original movie, him in a lot of ways having come full circle, and that being the moment where his journey is complete and he becomes one with the Force. So that I did like. Let's see. What else? What else? Rose I did like as a character. She seems like somebody who's kind of like very much in the place where Finn was in the last movie. Somebody who's just, yeah, she's a maintenance worker. She's basically a janitor. And by the end of this movie, she's shown that like she's got some serious chops. She's a pretty cool character. The whole like, oh, I'm gonna knock you out your pod out of the way with my pod, potentially killing us both in order to make sure you don't kill yourself in order to, potentially save the lives of, all of our friends and allies and what's left of the rebellion. Yeah, I'm not going to let you do that. And I'm going to do that because love will save us. Yeah, seriously? No. No. That's dumb. What else? What else? Um, yeah, honestly, I kind of think that covers everything I really had to say about this movie. I mean, I know I've spent a lot of time ragging on the movie's flaws, and, well, let's face it, plot holes and, very questionable character stuff. I mean, that's nothing new in Star Wars. But this movie was definitely a big improvement, and it is nice to see that they are taking the criticisms that people had of the previous films and trying to address them. I think we're probably just going to have to resign ourselves to the fact that, it's maybe gonna, these Star Wars movies are not going to be the lightning in a bottle that the original trilogy was. I mean, and let's face it, the original trilogy had serious flaws in it if you really want to be honest about it. We are going to get what are probably reasonably well crafted movies that play around with the Star Wars lore, but probably are going to be very conservative in introducing any big new ideas. I mean, people had some really serious backlash in regards to stuff like the midichlorians and a lot of other things from the prequels. And I think it's really going to be a while before Star Wars sort of settles into a good balance with the new status quo. I mean, probably just like with the previous EU, and has already started to happen in media outside of the movies. New writers and creators are going to come in, they're going to start fleshing things out, and over time, it's going to find itself in a good place. So the new universe, I think, is still finding itself, but I think it's going to mature into something that'll be quite enjoyable. Oh yeah, we still have no idea where Finn came from as a character. I mean, he doesn't have any memory of his parents or who he comes from, and I don't even know at this point if that's ever going to come back up again. I'm no idea. So yeah, guys, I'm going to call it here. As always, please comment, rate, subscribe. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Hoosier Jedi, and please also join me on Tumblr at Jedi Reviewer. Until next time, take care and have a good one.